Hey guys, welcome back to Exotic Car Hacks. My name is Pejman Gadimi, founder of Exotic Car Hacks and the host of your learning today. Another week goes by and today we're going to answer a really unique question. How do you afford a Lamborghini? Very basic question, especially because most people that know me know that I'm pretty well off now. So unfortunately, how do I afford a Lamborghini? Obviously, you buy one today. Using the strategies we teach at exoticcarhacks.com, obviously you're going to learn how to do that even if you don't have the means to typically own a Lamborghini. In other words, you don't need to have $200,000 or even $300,000 or $400,000 to buy a car, regardless that it's an Aventador, a Gallardo, a Performante, a Superleggera, or a Huracan, or anything else. You just don't have to have the money these days to own a Lamborghini. So originally, now I did at some point. I was one of the first guys that actually owned a Lamborghini that still worked a 9 to 5 back in the day. Back in 2006, when I was 23 years old, about to turn 24, I bought my first Lamborghini Gallardo, which was a 2004 6-speed manual. Today, you can buy a 2004 for roughly $75,000 to $80,000. But back in the day, in my time and age, when I was about to buy a car, it was fairly new, and the cars were clocking like 120, 130 for the older model cars. So the market's changed a little bit on those older model cars, and obviously, as the market changes, the new cars become cheaper as well. We see a lot of videos on YouTube. Obviously, a friend of mine, Rob Dom, also has this video where he says, how do I afford a Lamborghini Diablo? And then we have a lot of other videos where internet marketers and people have bought their first Lamborghinis and are saying, here's my dream coming true, I bought my first car. There's a huge misconception out there about how exotic cars work, and there's a huge misconception out there about how difficult or easy it is to buy a Lamborghini. First off, it's important to know that most people who own Lamborghinis do not have to be millionaires or billionaires to own them, regardless that it's an Aventador or regardless that it's like an LP 570 like the one behind me, or even a base model Gallardo. You don't have to be a millionaire. There is enough leverage, especially in the United States anyways, there's enough leverage between banks, there's enough leverage between supply and demand markets, which we'll talk about in a second, to be able to afford a Lamborghini at a very reasonable monthly cost and to be able to sustain it and really not lose any money doing it. In most cases, like many of the cars we cover in Exotic Car Hacks, it's actually easier and cheaper to own a Lamborghini than to actually own a Honda Accord. And I'm about to explain why. You see, there's a significant difference between how the exotic car market works and how normal car markets work. Normal car markets come out with a new car every 3 to 5 years, you know, like the Honda Accord comes out, and the Honda Accord has a new model that comes out every 3 to 5 years. During that time, every year a new Honda comes out, the previous car depreciates like crazy, and Honda incentivizes people massively with 0% financing, as well as a lot of special deals on cars to get them to buy their older cars that are sitting on the lot. Because the new ones are on the lot for the same price, making the older cars kind of depreciate and making used cars then depreciate even more. You see, this phenomenon is called car depreciation, and is pretty much why cars are known to be a liability in the world around us everywhere. There are some cars you buy that just keep going down and keep going down and keep going down. The thing that works though with these Hondas and everything else is that these Hondas are high volume cars. They build hundreds of thousands each year, and the more mileage people put on them and the more models come out, the more these cars become completely obsolete. They go from $22,000, $25,000 being new all the way down to zero, having no worth other than the worth of a used car of a few $1,000s, like $2,000 to $3,000 depending on the miles, etc. So the gap starts at all the way up at its price, at its fair price value, and goes all the way down to zero. Therefore, the margin becomes huge, meaning that you can lose 100% of the money you put in a car if you keep it long enough. Now, someone could argue that, well, you can have a small enough payment for 5 years, drive a Honda Accord for 5 years for $200 to $300 a month, and then for the next 5 years, drive it for free, right? But who wants a 15-year-old Accord? Like, what's the point of that? That's a piece of shit. So you have to think about like the whole idea of wanting an exotic car and how the same thing could happen in an exotic car, right? Well, not really. Here's why. There's a depreciation curve that takes place for exotic cars that's very different than the depreciation curve of a normal car. The depreciation curve of a normal car, like we covered, goes from 100% of its value to zero. On the exotic market, it goes from 100% of its value down to roughly about 30% of its value, and then holds around there. Meaning, and 30% is kind of a generic guideline to use. Not every car. Some cars goes down to 20%, some car goes up to 50%, depends. And some cars never go down. But the real idea behind exotic cars is that their margin, their zero ceiling is typically 20 to 30% of their value. And then what ends up happening is, then it becomes a question of mileage, and it becomes a question of condition, which then drive the price up or down. Which is why there's a significant difference between a margin on an exotic car and a margin on a normal car. When you go buy a Honda Accord, you typically look them up on AutoTrader, you look them up everywhere else, and what you tend to get is you tend to see a car, and all cars kind of follow the same dollar amount based on mileage. Dealers are competing for your business. In the exotic car world, so many things come into play. Color, condition, year, mileage, options. Like some of these exotics have hundreds of thousands in options. That changes the car dynamic. Which means that it is possible that you see a Lamborghini on the market that is a year, let's say a 2008 Lamborghini for 100K, and you'll see the same car with the same mileage somewhere else for 128K. There are so many differences, such as what the person bought the car for, what options, the clutch life. There's thousands of things, criteria that go into why the car's priced a certain way. These margins is what you can play with when you buy a car. In other words, if you find the right car that's being sold cheap enough, you're able to buy it, drive it, and then sell it for that same margin that the dealer was going to use to make on it. Because the margins are greater, you have a bigger opportunity to take less profit, but still take a profit. Excuse me. So a good example would be this. I used to have a Bentley convertible that many people are familiar with that follow me on Instagram at @ICreateMillionaire. I had a Bentley Super Sport convertible. The dealer was asking $179,000. That's a lot of money. The car originally new was $320K. Now you have a $179,000 car. I could walk in that dealership and buy that car for $159,000, but I bought that car for $128,000 from the same dealer. Now that means that the dealer had a $50,000 margin. Now why would the dealer think he can make a $50,000 margin on a car and think that's reasonable? Because when the dealer looks at positioning their car and pricing, they look at what other dealers are selling the same car for. So if the dealer got lucky and bought that car cheap enough, like $125,000, let's say, and now looks at this margin and says, okay, now I have the opportunity because everyone else is selling theirs for $179,000, I'll sell mine for $179,000. And is hoping someone will come in and make him a good deal at $159,000 and take the car. Dealer would still make roughly like $30,000 in the trade, like on the deal. So it would be a great buy for the dealer to make a 30% margin, on the car. By me coming in and buying that car at $128,000, I've now killed the dealer margin. What that means for me, and you can see this case study if you're an insider, but what that means for us is that now I have a margin to play with. While the car will depreciate from $179,000 still, somewhere in the $150K range, and other people will be able to see that because other dealers will lower their prices and their margins, I still bought that car still a good 20% under that margin too, which means that I can drive the car until that takes place and then still sell the car for a profit. You see, the big deal is that the dealers play with such high margins on these cars, and the depreciation curves are so predictable on these cars because the market is so low volume and there's such a small amount of people that play in this game, like in terms of dealerships, that it's very easy to see inventory switch hands and for what dollar amounts. So if you use our strategies, you can actually see what dealers are buying cars for, because you can see what they were listed for before, what they're listing them for now, and you can understand how to calculate their margins. So you can go in and pretty much buy the car that a dealer couldn't sell before he sells it to another dealer. And you can buy it at such a low margin that you can drive it up if you can market it better, or you can wait because maybe the market will be different in 3 to 6 months, more buyers on the car, less buyers. But if you can wait it and drive it and enjoy it at the same time, you can make that margin back, or at the very least get out of it for the same price you got in it. So a good example is this. I'm going to give you a perfectly simple example so that it makes it very easy to understand. I don't like Lamborghinis. I've had a ton of them. This is a very common thing. I don't like them. I prefer Aston Martins and a dozen other cars that I've had. I love my Porsche Turbo S or Aston Martins, etc. I find them to be better cars altogether. So the question remains, why would I buy behind me this 2011 LP570 Performante, completely customized on like $15,000 ADB1s, KW coilovers, an RSC tune, and a beautiful exhaust made by Prestige Lamborghini? Why would I buy this car if I don't like it? because the deal on it was so good that I'll be able to drive it for the next 2 years and actually make $1,000 a month doing it. And I'll explain to you in a simple way how to do that. Think about it this way. These cars are selling on the market. If you look on eBay, and today we are the 20th of the month in January, and I don't know when this video is going to get released, but I would assume within a month of me filming this. These cars are selling on the market, if you look on eBay, on AutoTrader, and some of these other places we teach you on Exotic Car Hacks to look, for somewhere between $170,000 all the way up to $190,000, and in some cases $220,000. Lamborghini made this car since 2011 and continued it to 2014. They made a very few amount of units each year, which didn't make it a collectible or anything. Don't get me wrong, this isn't a very unique car. It's not a LaFerrari or Pagani or something crazy. It's not appreciating in value, for now anyways. It may at some point, but not now. And if you're doing the system, you only have 12 months to play, so therefore we're not looking at appreciation here. But what happens is these cars are selling in those ranges. Now this car that we're asking $186 for, I walked out of this dealership paying $145 for this car. Now, $145,000 for this car means that there's a $40,000 margin in the car. Now, the first thing that's going to happen is all the car guys are going to email me and say, how the fuck do you buy a LP 570 for $145K when I can barely buy a base model LP 560 from 2009 for like $130? That doesn't make any sense. And no, it's not a high mileage car. No, it's not an accident car. No, it's not a salvage car. Has no paint work. It's immaculate in every way, completely serviced. It's a 2-owner car, and it's mint. And later you'll see the case study, so we'll break down the exact numbers. But I want you to understand this. With the $145K that's in this car, that's not a lot of money, especially when the margin is $185. So if the average car is selling for $185, and the mileage on this one has 14,000 miles, is a little bit above the cars that are selling for $185, which those are usually $6,000 to $8,000 cars, then ask yourself, like, would you think somebody in the country would be willing to save $30,000 for 10,000 more miles, especially when the clutch is good, the services are good, and there's no reason something's wrong with this car? Of course, why would somebody not want a performante for $30,000 less? Meaning that at some point, at any given point in the next 12 months, the performante market is not going to drop $30,000. Because we can see where it's gone based on where it was. And now the 2011 is about 4 or 5 years old. And so we know what happened to these 2011s, so we can predict what happens to 2014s. But remember, between 2014 and 2011, the Lamborghini Performante behind me did not change one bit. The only options on the car were simply new ceramic rotors, which only were available in 2014. And those cars are all in the high 200s, like 220 to 240. So this is not a comparable car. Most comparable cars that are like the one behind me are between 200 to 180. That gives me about a 40K margin to play with. At any given time, I can sell this car for $155, take a 10K profit on it, walk away with $10,000 in my pocket, and having driven a Lamborghini for a little bit of time. But the other thing is I can also drive it. I can also drive it, put miles on it, enjoy it, and then at any given time in the next 2 years, 24 months, I can say, you know what, I don't want this car anymore, and I'd like my $145K back. Now, let's assume one second that this particular car I couldn't afford to buy cash, and I had to make payments. The true cost for me on this car, let's assume I broke even when I sold it, and I just got my money back, would only be the interest on the loan, which is very minimal thankfully, due to shitty Wall Street interest rates. You're able to actually get 2 to 3% financing on a car like this because it's a late model car. You are paying $2,000 a month, assuming no money down, which is a lot of money, you know, like that's to some people anyways. And to some others it's not. But $2,000 a month is not a payment, it's an investment into your own pocket. You're paying $2,000 a month times, let's say 12 months, right? That's $24,000. But if I tell you you're going to get your own money back, and the only thing was the interest rate you paid that you're not going to get back, which is $200 of that payment, then that means that you're going to get $22,000 back, assuming you break even. How many of you would pay $2,000 a year to drive an LP 570 convertible? Almost anybody I can think about. And that's really the key and the beauty of Exotic Car Hacks, is we teach you the same way I know how to buy these cars, like way below market, without going to the auction, without having a dealer license. I teach you how to do what I do. And it's really simple. And while it may seem simple in the sense of like the concept is to buy low and sell high, or buy low, drive and sell at a smaller profit, It's not that it's complicated, and it's not that I'm going to teach you a magical trick. It's just that you need to understand how the car market works, and you need to understand how to identify opportunities and how to have the right conversation so you can get the right cars at the right prices. It isn't a miracle cure. It isn't some like $299 a month plan where you're going to borrow a car or anything else. You have to have the ability to buy the car. Doesn't mean you have to pay for it cash. If you have decent credit, then you'll be able to buy it. If you have average credit, then I'll teach you how to fix it so you have decent enough credit to buy it. And in most cases, you can buy them with zero down. In some cases, you might have to put $5,000 down or $2,000 down or even $10,000 down. It depends on your individual situation. And so the key concept here that I'm teaching you is the ability to understand how you yourself can afford a Lamborghini and how simple it is to actually not only just afford a Lamborghini, any exotic car you want. There are some exotics like the Aston Martin Vantage that start at $50K. And there is some, and $50K means it's only going to cost you $600 a month. And while a $2,000 a month may be a far kind of idea for some people, because some people that are watching this may not have the means to pay $2,000 a month, or it might make them financially uncomfortable to lose that cash flow. Many of you already pay $500-600 a month for a base model BMW, and you lose your ass on it every time you go sell it. What if you could have an Aston Martin Vantage 6-speed, a beautiful car, low mileage, incredible performance, not the fastest, but a beautiful balance of handling and speed, comfort. And if I told you that oil changes are only going to cost you $99 because I teach you how to do that too, then why wouldn't you? Oh yeah, then there's the insurance, right? No, there isn't. In almost every state, insurance on exotics is actually a lot cheaper than normal cars because insurances look at the way you actually drive, and they know that exotics don't get driven as much, and they know that if you have a good record and you're not a reckless driver, it's not going to cost you that much. Now, it's not going to cost you that much because this car behind me cost me only $700 every 6 months in one of the most expensive states, Florida, to insure a car because there's a lot of fraud down here. Now, I have a perfect driving record. Many of you do too. If you have one infraction or a problem, then you know what? In most cases, it's still not that bad. If you're the guy that always gets DUIs and makes mistakes like that and goes driving 40 over the speed limit and gets tickets every month, probably not a good bet for you, right? Well, it's probably not a good idea for you to even own an exotic car, period. You know, you might want to stick to like either your feet or, you know, getting a Honda Civic or something. So, you know, it really comes down to the idea of understanding the market isn't rocket science. And then asking yourself, what would you rather drive? An R8, a Lamborghini, an Aston, or a Honda Civic? Your choice, your call. ExoticCarHacks.com. Learn how to buy, trade, and sell exotic cars. Hey guys, thanks again for watching my video. I really hope you found value in it. Make sure to click the subscribe button somewhere around here so that you can make sure you get notices when I release new clips. I'll try to cover all types of cool topics in the automotive industry, as well as incredible interviews with dealers sharing their secrets. So we'll catch you next time on another video.